Welcome to McGuire on Wrestling.
Allow me to reintroduce myself
with Mike McGuire.
Stand up, son. Let me take a good look at you.
This guy's a serious professional.
You know what I want to talk about?
Yeah.
Well, the professional wrestling.
Do I have your attention now?
Done shilling. I'm done shilling, okay?
Let's get this show on the road.
I love professional wrestling.
Hi there, and thanks for listening on the radio and online. This is McGuire on Wrestling, part of the Celebrate Wrestling podcast feed, and also proudly broadcasting on the radio across Canada at select stations. If you would like to carry this show or have a station in your market carry it, let me know. You can contact me directly, McGuireShow@yahoo.com. What a Royal Rumble weekend it was. It was a long show. Only 4 matches, but 2 of them being Rumble matches. A lot of stories coming out of that, and we'll go over some of those this week. But as we like to do, we like to turn it over to you and your feedback as well. So if you're listening on the radio, you're going to get some feedback from our round table, triangle table, I suppose, between myself, Dimitri Korolis from our alternate commentary table show, and Joe Aguinaldo, who's a regular contributor on all our shows on the podcast network. Plus, if you are listening on the podcast today, you're getting a special extended edition, which includes a Yay Boo segment, which is kind of our popular thing we've started doing after big shows in wrestling. We get you to yay or boo the show and then tell us why. Tons of feedback coming from you today on that as well. So thank you for always being a part of that. If you want to be a part of this show, we had a huge surge in members this past week of the Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page. Just look up Celebrate Wrestling McGuire on Wrestling on Facebook and join that page. It only takes a second. We ask you a couple questions to get you in and make sure you're not a bot. And once that's done, you can interact with the entire community there. Again, going strong here. So many new members. Thank you to everybody that joined. Thank you also to everybody that played in our free Royal Rumble pool. So I've been talking about how some new merch is coming. That is on its way. Once that gets done, I'll be sending out some prize packs to our winners here. We had 3 winners overall out of the Royal Rumble pool. So if you want details on that, check out our Facebook page. Again, everything's free. We try and do things as much for free as possible because, let's face it, your money's your money. And we are going to have some merch, but if you'd like to contribute to the show financially, make a donation to our PayPal, you can do that. It's on McGuireShow.com. We are going to talk all about the WWE Royal Rumble, and Dave Meltzer is also going to be on the show today, as he always is. However, we're going to switch the order around a bit here because there's so much to talk about, so many opinions. We want to jump right to it. Joe Aguinaldo and Dimitri Korolis are standing by, but first we want to go through some of the biggest stories of the week, as we do every week and have been doing for years. Big E, it's the 5 count.
You want to hear the breaking news?
Well, of course, one of the favorite things about the Royal Rumble every year are surprise returns and maybe one-off appearances. Now, we're not sure what is what when it comes to a couple names here. However, it was reported shortly after the Rumble by Fightful.com that Alexa Bliss has finalized a new deal with WWE. Trish Stratus's appearance seems to be a bit of a one-off for now, but Nikki Bella had some interesting comments to say after her surprise appearance at number 30 in the match.
You know, there's parts of me that have unfinished business, long business with Charlotte Flair, but also with Liv Morgan. That would probably be my most unfinished business with. And it's great to see some of my girls back here that, you know, we still have Naomi and Natty. But, you know, I've never caused chaos to Bayley. That's someone who I've really been loving. And I kind of want to kick her off her high horse is Chelsea Green.
Well, this is something I don't mean to pass off as reporting storyline as actual news, but for those that are interested, John Cena had something interesting to say after his appearance in the Royal Rumble. Rather than fielding questions from the audience in attendance at the post-show, he instead issued a statement. And is it just me, or does his tone seem a little non-Cena?
What is best for business is I main event WrestleMania. And what is best for business is, for the first time, I confidently say that I'm going to win a 17th championship. So I'm announcing tonight that I will compete in the Elimination Chamber. And I'm saying that because after 23 years of loyal service to this company, I feel that opportunity is earned.
Shout out to McGuire on Wrestling listener and Celebrate Wrestling follower Tommy Lang for pointing out that it sure sounds a lot like things a heel would say, doesn't it? Just saying. Of course, John Cena has been long expected to headline the Elimination Chamber PLE in Toronto, which comes up next month. Well, in much more serious news, there's been an amendment made to the lawsuit filed by Janel Grant, who, of course, instigated what would become the downfall of Vince McMahon and his departure from WWE and TKO, respectively. Now, the amendment has some new names listed in it as far as people who are of interest in the lawsuit, and also removes some key figures, one of which had a definite presence at the Rumble this past weekend, Stephanie McMahon. Now, I'm going to leave the details on this for Dave Meltzer to talk about, but it is interesting to see that with her removal from the lawsuit, Steph seems to be back in the full WWE fold. Well, shifting over to AEW news, we found out that, of course, 2 weeks away from AEW's Grand Slam Australia, Mercedes Moné is set to have a match on the card. Also, in AEW women's news, Megan Bayne has officially signed with the company. She got her graphic after her match on Collision on Saturday night. Also, Max Caster made another open challenge, to which Roosh accepted, making his return to AEW on Collision. And in other AEW news, they're celebrating some great viewership numbers over in the UK. Tony Khan tweeting that according to ITV Sport, this past week's AEW Dynamite on ITV4 set the all-time record. This week, AEW Dynamite had our most live viewers ever in the UK. He then said that Collision also set an all-time record. Of course, with WWE moving to Netflix internationally, AEW is the largest company on broadcast television in most regions now, including the United Kingdom. Good for them. And in other ancillary to WWE news, TNA announced that they have re-signed Mustafa Ali. Of course, Ali was famous in WWE for many years. And also, WWE has started taping their new Evolve series. Now, this is going to feature several talents that are either in NXT right now or part of the WWE ID program, which we heard independent wrestlers being signed to over the last few months. Word is the tapings will begin this Friday. Well, we got a lot of show for you this week. Coming up next, Joe Aguinaldo and Dimitri Korolis from our Celebrate Wrestling Podcast Network are coming together for a roundtable as we look back at this past weekend's WWE Royal Rumble. What worked, what didn't, we'll give you our thoughts, and then we open up the floor to the Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer and your feedback as well with our Yay Boo segment. It's all coming up.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
Legends and Champions is your weekly fix to go old school, looking at the classic world of professional wrestling. From Hulk Hogan to the Hitman Bret Hart to the Icon Sting to the total package Lex Luger, we have it all each and every week on Legends and Champions, part of the Celebrate Wrestling Network, and it's available on a Wednesday with me, Andy Evans. See you there.
Welcome back to McGuire on Wrestling.
Well, as promised, we were going to bring you a round table for post-Royal Rumble, but sometimes life happens, so we're bringing you a triangle of terror, if you would. Post-WWE Royal Rumble 2025, joining me from the alternate commentary table, Dimitri Korolis.
Dimitri Korolis. How's it going, everyone?
That is your name. That's you. Good, buddy. And joining us from pretty much everything, Joe Aguinaldo.
Yeet.
All right, here we go. And for those that can't see this, obviously, because we're on the radio, Dimitri, you are supporting the winner of the men's 2025 Royal Rumble by wearing your Yeet shirt you picked up at Monday Night Raw in Calgary. Royal Rumble last night, huge show, long show. Let's do the overalls here. How are you feeling? Joe, let's start with you after the Royal Rumble here.
Long and short, there were some really, really cool moments. I did like the surprise of Jay winning, but overall, I just kind of felt this was a lackluster Rumble.
Dimitri, your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was okay. It was entertaining. It was all right. It was good. I don't know. The men's Royal Rumble was a surprise, but there was nothing that really stood out to me. I'll be honest with you. I felt like I'm coming out of this feeling like I felt from Survivor Series. And I don't know if that's my fault or the presentation. I'm trying to figure that out.
Remind me how you felt coming out of Survivor Series.
I think I overhyped myself
to
a potential outcome that I built the premium live event to be something where it was. And then I'm like, oh, okay.
In fact, if I remember correctly, you guys called that the worst pay-per-view or PLE for 2024.
We did. We did.
Yeah. Dimitri, I 100% agree with you. I think, again, it wasn't bad, but I was expecting more given the storylines going into the Rumble. There was so much really cool stuff going on. And then when you got the results that you got, you're like, oh, what is this? Like, you know what I mean?
Well, I found it interesting during the comment thread here how, Joe, you seemed especially checked out on a few things here. And not that you were going out of your way to be negative or nothing, but I was at Lethbridge Hurricanes game last night doing my job as in-game host. So as I have several breaks between my job, I had the Rumble streaming on my phone. So I literally pull it out of my pocket, see, what's going on here, and then go back. And then even at a couple moments in the show, I was like, okay, we'll see what's coming up later.
I think anytime I go to the Men's Royal Rumble, I actually don't mind the finish. I don't mind Jey Uso. I'm all yeet all day long. So I figured, okay, nice surprise. But in the exactly.
Joe's doing the yeet dance. I love how you guys do these visual bits for an audio show. This is the best part.
But anytime you have to do extra to build a storyline in the marquee presentation. So when I'm talking like CM Punk and Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, and you got to build out all this stuff on the outside that has nothing to do with the Rumble itself, that to me tells me something. That's where it falls flat for me. The Kevin Owens Cody Rhodes match. I hate to say that I'm converting. It's almost like the episode of Seinfeld. Like I'm Costanza going to Latvian Orthodox all of a sudden. I think I'm on Mitch's train with Kevin Owens. To me, I looked at it. I just build.
You think that they missed the boat here with Kevin Owens?
Yeah, I do.
I'm actually inclined to agree with you. I know some people weren't crazy about that match overall. I thought the match itself was tremendous. I thought KO over-delivered. I mean, I'm biased. I have a KO bias to begin with because I think he's so fantastic, and I always have. But when it comes down to the actual finish of the match, when you see Kevin Owens go through that ladder the way he did off the announce table, land on his damn head, and maybe not land on his head, but end up on his head, folded completely over. I mean, either kudos to whatever DDP yoga program he's doing or whatever to get that kind of flexibility or what. But I thought there was a real moment there to really sell the fact that they both could have been damn near dead. And I mean, KO still, we haven't heard anything. I can't believe he's feeling great after that. But at the same time, it just seemed a little flat for the finish because KO was down so hard and Cody kind of took his sweet time getting back. And the funny thing is he didn't really take his time. He didn't do the typical ladder match thing, which I've always despised, whereas all of a sudden you're in the middle of a match and climbing a ladder, an 8 or 10 foot ladder is now the hike of Mount Everest. Right? Where they take forever to do one step. And I get being gassed and tired and everything else. Like Cody got up there relatively quickly. And I don't know if it was just fiddling with the belts or what it was, but it's just when he got the titles, it seemed very kind of, okay, yeah, he got it good. Yeah, all right. That was a good match. That's
what I mean. Anticlimactic, lackluster. That's when he got up there. 100%. I was like, oh, is Owens supposed to like jump up and do something here? And then he took the belts down. And you're like, oh, all right.
Let's talk about the Rumble matches themselves here. Let's go in order, and then we'll talk about the overall feeling here. I've got a Yay Boo post up on our social media as well. But, Joe, let's start with the Women's Royal Rumble. Charlotte Flair, your winner.
I have always been a Charlotte Flair fan, so I don't have an issue with it. That said, though, I mean, I could have thought of a couple of other winners that would have, that I would have been happy with, but no problem with Charlotte. And regarding the match itself, I actually really liked the Women's Rumble because it was chaotic, but in kind of an organized way where it didn't seem so choreographed. Like, because at one point they had a bunch of women in the ring, and I'm like, man, this brings me back to like old school like battle royals when everyone would start in the ring. So I really dug the Women's Rumble.
How about the surprise of Alexa Bliss coming back? You know, I loved, who was it, Wade Barrett and Michael Cole, both of them going off. Oh, you read the internet. You don't read the dirt sheets. And I am going to ask Dave Meltzer about that. But when it comes down to things, I mean, there was a report. And as soon as I saw this report, I was like, that's bull. Like, she's totally coming out now.
Yeah.
The report was that her and WWE are miles apart on a contract and miles apart on an agreement. WWE isn't having a problem spending money right now on people they think are worth it.
Yeah, wrestling is the greatest industry for the worst kept secrets, right? That's what I love about it too. But it still surprised me. The Women's Royal Rumble was, to me, the best thing that happened in that pay-per-view, that PLE, okay? And here's a point where you say something predictable, like Charlotte Flair winning, but the presentation is so well done, you leave satisfied. So it's like Mitch and I will joke around like going to the keg. You know what? You're going to get what you get every single time. There is no variance, okay? It is the greatest constant of all time. And so I liked it. And, you know, going back to Joe, what you said about the whole, like the Battle Royale and how many people were in at one time. And that's the Rumble. That's the Rumble for me. And then they did it so well where Nia Jax decided to just obliterate, I think, 5 people.
Six.
That was awesome.
You know, because it makes sense and it's entertaining and it's funny and it's nice and everything about it. So to me, that was just well done. And that's okay.
I think out of the two matches, the Women's Rumble actually did kind of excite me more as far as just watching. I thought the surprises were great. Seeing Trish in there, holy Lord, having Alexa Bliss come back, Jordan Grace making her official WWE debut. You know, it all pieced together really nicely. Some great representation from NXT as well in there with Stephanie Vaquer. I think that Charlotte Flair, and if you missed the post-show press conference, very emotional about her time. She's been gone since December 2023. Okay.
Crazy.
And this was what they thought could be a career-ending injury. Now, that's nothing against what's going on with the men, too. I mean, AJ Styles, he kind of faked us out, too, talking about how bad his injury was going to be. We'll get to that when we get to the men's match. But I like the fact that even when predictable, there's still unpredictables. And I thought the Women's Royal Rumble really delivered on that. So it was good.
100%.
Okay, the next match here. I got some thoughts, but I want to start with you guys first. Joe, we'll go to you. The tag team titles on the line. The Motor City Machine Guns against the DIY team, defending their titles here.
I remember when they announced this, I was like, what? They're showing this match now? Like after the Rumble, and it's a 2 out of 3 falls match. I kind of lost interest right away. Really not into it. And I think on top of that, it's the fact that I'm not the biggest fan of DIY, and the Motor City Machine Guns haven't been blowing my socks off since their WWE debut. But that said, I did watch it on sort of the rewind, and from a work perspective, it was actually a really good match from a work rate perspective. But just overall, again, it was one of those ones where I was like, whatever.
Full disclosure, Joe and I talked about this match last night as I was leaving the hockey game because I wanted his thoughts on it, and then I watched it this morning before we started the show here. You mentioned work rate, and I have a thought on work rate. So, Dimitri, after we get your thoughts, I want you to remind me about work rate, okay?
Okay.
But, Dimitri, the 2 out of 3 falls tag team match, what did it do for you? Or did it do anything for you?
Street Profits. That's what it did for me.
There you go.
At the end of the day, that's mission accomplished. And I'm going to back my boy up and say the Motor City mopeds, okay, as Mitch likes to call them, okay, against what I like to call the other people the DIE, because you know what? It's just vanilla, okay? It's vanilla. Let's get some toppings on here. Street Profits, finally, let's go. Real winners. They should have just hand the belts over right now. Just give them, be done. Do something. That was great. That to me, loved it. Loved every part of it.
Yeah, and if I can just jump in real quick. So as well as the match was worked in, again, from a work rate perspective, nobody's going to remember that because everyone's going to remember the Street Profits coming in. That was the key to the match, as Dimitri said.
Okay, so key to my point now that I've been waiting since last night to talk about this. We always say work rate. Oh, the moves were good. The execution was great. It was a beautifully executed match. The guys did great things. Poor Ciampa's nose is spread across his face now, though, unfortunately. But I want to throw this out there, and you, the listener, I would love your feedback. A comment under this episode, either wherever you get your podcasts or on our Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page here. Is work rate limited to just moves? I don't think so. I think especially in 2025 pro, because here's the thing. What do we always call it when you get the fans up? You're working the crowd. You're working the fans. You're working the boys. You're working the office, whatever. To me, work rate is two things. Yes, you need to be great at executing your moves. You need to be great at selling what you're doing in the match. But work rate is the charisma. It's the believability. It's the engagement from the fans. We've talked about this with other shows where you can have spot fest galore. But if the fans aren't bought into it, then you haven't worked them. You've just done some good moves. So to me, work rate needs to have the emotional investment. And I know that seems like two different things to a lot of fans that use the term work rate, but I don't think I'm off here. I think work rate needs to include having that emotional buy-in. Guys, your thoughts?
I absolutely agree. And that's the whole point of professional wrestling and entertainment is, and I'll be honest, because a lot of times, to your point there, Mike, is that just because you're doing a lot of moves doesn't mean you're doing anything for the emotion, for the entertaining, for the selling. Like that is more than the battle. And I'll say two words, as I said, Street Profit, point in case, Hulk Hogan. Like he had a decent career without a move set, but you want to talk about, to your point, work rate? Yeah, I think he did a pretty good job over the years keeping everyone glued to the TV sets. So I love your take on that. I absolutely love it.
For the most part, I agree, but I think it just depends on what wrestling fan you're talking to as well.
Yeah.
Right? Because I 100%, like, let's take Ric Flair, okay? Ric Flair, great worker, but he's not doing Hurricane Ranas. He's not doing, like, reverse Ranas. He's not doing top rope, power bombs or anything like that. He just knows how to work a match. And so that's to your point. Mm-hmm. But again, if you're talking to, say, like the new school wrestling fan or a younger wrestling fan who is used to seeing the Young Bucks, who is used to seeing, Lucha Libre, I think it depends on the wrestling fan. But I do agree with you. I think work rate isn't just moves. It's the psychology. It's the get the emotion from the crowd. It's all that combined.
If you talk to any veteran wrestler, and even of the last 20 years, they'll say the same thing. And I can't tell you how many guys I've talked to who say the same thing. And there's a word that's becoming more and more popular now among fans and other hosts of shows like this. I'll go ahead and give credit. Bully Ray over on Busted Open is probably the best person to say this a lot, though. You need to let it register. You need to let the moves register and get the fans engaged in, I'm worried about my guy taking triple axle, full frontal, lobotomizing Hurricane Rana driver, right? But at the same time, it looks great. It looks incredible. But if they get up 2 minutes later and do another one, it's like, So
it's funny you say that, because just coming back to the KO Cody match, there was one point where KO got that power bomb on the ladder.
Yes.
And then 2 seconds later, Cody's Superman. And I was like, come on.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Come on.
But that's my problem with the finish of that match, too. So let's go ahead and move forward to the ladder match then for the Undisputed Championship, the Winged Eagle replica belt, and the WWE Championship. And don't get me wrong, the Winged Eagle is still the better looking belt. I don't even care if it's a replica. It's still the better looking belt. But what I really liked about this match, it was a ladder match that primarily only used ladders as weapons. The commentary table got used once, but the rest of the time, every weapon was a ladder, which is the way it should be in a ladder match. I am so tired of ladder matches just becoming hardcore matches. Let's whip out everything. We got chairs, we got barbed wire, we got thumbtacks, we got a roto-rooter. Who cares? Use the weapons available to you. So even when they were using the the jokey kind of, they called it the Hornswoggle ladder, the little ladder, which, by the way, still makes no sense. Hornswoggle, if anything, should have had a taller ladder to begin with. But using that and having the ability to use it, because you're not having to swing this giant ladder, but you're still doing some serious damage because people know that's either a steel or a fiberglass ladder. That's still, you can relate to that hitting your body and going, ow, I don't care how big or small. It's like stepping on Lego. It doesn't seem like a devastating tool, but it still hurts. And so the fact that they kept it within the confines of a ladder match, that was one of the things I really enjoyed about the match itself. Now, let's go to Dimitri on this one first. Dimitri coming out of the Cody and Kevin ladder match.
By the way, I want to see that Rooter match. That sounds like something that is riveting. Okay. And I want to correct you. It's called the ladder. It's not a Hornswoggle ladder anymore, Mr. McGuire. Okay?
I'm aware. I didn't call it that. Michael Cole is who you got to talk to.
I know. But you know what? Agree on your take. Like, thank goodness. Sometimes we just got to keep things as pure as they are. And I always find it fascinating that people will go back and revert to these classics that are all-time great. So namely, if we go Razor Ramon, Shawn Michaels, which was exactly that. We can carbon copy and just take inspiration. With the match, I'm disappointed for one thing and one thing only. When we go back and you talk about the take that we had about work rate and selling it, there's also got to be something to that build up and where you're going. And if all you're doing is investing all this time just to give us the same old story and song and dance again, fine, but what's next? And that's always the problem that I have. Okay, so what's next? I think Kevin Owens should have kept the wing eagle. I think he should have won the match, because now I'm on the KO train. And if you're going to give us disruption, which is probably a great segue later as we go into the men's Royal Rumble, but if you're going to give us disruption, then can you just give it to us? Like, can we just have it then? Or can we have something go along with it? Again, that promo and the buildup that they had, job well done. But for what job were you doing? Now, was it even necessary? To the point sometimes I say, why don't they just give these champions a break and just not even wrestle for 3 or 4 months? And we'll see at WrestleMania. Because maybe I would just be better suited to have that.
Cody Rhodes will be the defending champion, and Gunther will be the defending champion at WrestleMania for both these guys. Unless something extreme happens. I am interested to see what happens with Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns moving forward. I think there's something there, and that might actually be Roman's program this year. I don't know, but we'll talk about that after the Rumble here. Back to the match itself, Joe, overall here, the ladder match. I know we've already touched on it a bit here, but your take from it.
I can't really complain about it. I do agree that I like the fact that it was just ladders. Like, there was no other garbage, so to speak, in the match. But to Dimitri's point, it was like, okay, Cody won. Great. But the promos leading up to that felt WrestleMania. That's like, if we were doing Cody versus KO at WrestleMania, those promos work and that match works. For the Royal Rumble, yeah, not so much.
We don't know, and we're not going to speculate too wildly on the contract status of Kevin Owens. There was some talk here that he may be on his way out. We don't know. It's getting harder and harder to find these details out, and I don't know if that's even the case. I don't see how it could be at this point. I mean, the money, the exposure, the star power he has, I don't know where you're going to go and make all that again. Do you know what I mean? And maybe he doesn't care. But if that was a swan song for Kevin Owens, then that is, the
hell of a swan song.
That's what I mean. That's the ultimate looking at the lights, or looking at your own thighs because they're folded over your face in a ladder. But it still felt like there's more to this fire. This could be a feud that comes back. Not right away because we got WrestleMania to get through, but Kevin Owens can always be there as a threat. And I think the guy is worth every penny they pay him. And I think that he proved it with the amount of abuse that both of them took last night at the Rumble. So, okay. You're listening to McGuire on Wrestling on the radio and online. Dimitri Korolis and Joe Aguinaldo joining me for the Triangle of Terror edition of a post-Royal Rumble roundtable. Before we get to our thoughts on the Rumble, Andy Evans and Mitch Honsius were both going to be in here. Andy, of course, is in the UK and had an evening gig he had to work out. So while we're recording now, it's like 7 hours ahead for him. So he's busy. We'll get to his comments in a second. But first, your tag team partner here, Dimitri, Mitch from the alternate commentary table, says that he loved the ladies' Royal Rumble and he thought the ladder match was a 6 out of 10. The tag team 2 out of 3 matches was unneeded. The best part was the Street Profits, agreeing with you, Dimitri. And Jey Uso winning is maybe the most weird thing I have seen in decades. The merch game is real. He says, no yeet. So let's get into
the yeet. He loves the yeet.
We'll do Andy's commentary afterwards here, but let's start with you, Joe. The Men's Royal Rumble. Highlights for you and your thoughts on the overall finish of Jey Uso being your winner.
The Men's Rumble felt more like a factory, nothing exciting.
Status quo.
Thank you. Yeah, it was status quo. There was some good moments. I like Joe Hendry. That was great. I thought that was awesome. The fact that he got to interact with Roman a little bit.
A little bit.
Okay, I'm just saying. But for the most part, it was like, yeah, it was just very status quo. There wasn't anything exciting. It just felt like other Rumbles from the past, except for Jey winning the Rumble. It was like, that was surprising, especially who he was in with Cena at the end. I was like, okay, this Cena thing. And then when Jey won, I was like, wow. All right, where are we going from here? The other thing I want to mention too, I think Penta got eliminated first. Just got to put that out there.
Okay. I went back and watched it, and I even tried to record it in slow-mo, play it. There does appear, and this is arguing about predetermined results, so we'll just make this quick.
Yeah, I know.
It does appear that after his right foot hits the floor solidly, and he did bounce back up, that for just a second, and I know this, and Dimitri and Joe, you probably know this too, if you own any men's dress shoes, when you get that first crease between your toe and the rest of your foot line there, that little bend in that area there, it does appear that Penta's left foot did crease for like a millisecond. So, but he did what he had to do.
Yeah, and again, it's not bugging me. It's just like at the end of the day, it was still, it was still fun to watch Penta and Rey in the match. So.
Oh yeah, and Penta, man, he was in there for a while too. They're definitely working on this guy. So okay, Dimitri, have at it.
Crease or no crease? What are you going to do about it, AEW? What are you going to do about it?
100%.
Number one, Joe Hendry, greatest thing to happen to the Rumble, the whole exchange. They should have paused the Rumble to give him more time to even do a re-entrance. Like next year when he joins, he should eliminate, go out, come back, go out, come back. I will never get tired of his music, his whole persona and everything. I think it's really cool. The last couple of years, we've seen the trend with TNA and the things, the partnership and the alignment with TNA and WWE. I think this is great because you know what it's replaced? It's replaced now the unnecessary, let's find a legend that won't really do much, that maybe doesn't mean much. Now we can get more impactful talent in the Rumble. I love that. So looking at the lineup for this Rumble, this is why I just feel so deflated. It reminded me of the 92 Rumble, where everyone who was anyone was in that Rumble. And you're like, what is going to happen? We talked about it on the ECT. You can make a point and a case for anyone being in there with their storyline, whether it's John Cena, Roman Reigns, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre. So there's all this excitement. I don't hate the fact that Yeet won. I actually love it. I can't wait to see what they're going to do with that one. However, don't give us this whole package and then have to tell us that there's a storyline for 5 minutes, however it was, outside of the ring to save the essence of the match that it was. And that's where it falls flat to me. That to me just says you didn't really have much planned. You need to do this over here, and you just feel like you got to build up the Rumble. So I'm like, it's a lot of bright spots. It's kind of like my homework, and like all the notes I got as kids that my parents would read, has promise, but the results unfortunately are lackluster. This was looking at my report card.
Yeah. Has potential.
He's got potential.
I say that because I might have got the same report card, but
yeah, that's right. That's amazing.
Okay, trivia question. What was the time interval for people coming to the ring in the Men's Royal Rumble? How many minutes apart?
Like 90 seconds?
Nope, it's 2 minutes. Every 2 minutes, a new competitor will make their way down the aisle of the ring. Roman Reigns' entrance took 1 minute and 46 seconds. I timed it. Another entrant did not come into that ring for a couple minutes after that. Okay? Then all of a sudden, John Cena hits the ring. And 30 seconds later, here's CM Punk. And I'm not sure on these 30 seconds. I didn't time these ones, but I know it was less than 2 minutes. Seth Rollins comes in. And in that, generously, I will say a 5-minute window. Nobody touched. They were all waiting to see who was coming out next. They literally stood there. Roman was on one side of the ring. Cena was on the other side of the ring. And Cena is popping like a fan when he hears the theme music of the next person come out and the next person come out. And nobody touched until Seth got in there and tackled Punk. What are we doing?
I personally think if you're going to take that long to walk to the ring and you're getting, like, you should be able to get lapped. Like, after Roman Reigns, you're right. Like, you should be able, someone should just walk out and be like, listen, you do you, get the camera crew on you, but I got to get to the ring. Like, you should be able just to walk past them.
It's the Iron Sheik WrestleMania 19 gimmick battle royal rule. Right? He's still taking his time to get to the ring. Fine, get past him. Go. We got other things to do.
Like, isn't that a strategy? Like, I know if I was in the Rumble, like, I actually wouldn't go to the ring until the end. Like, no, it's not for me. I'll take my time.
Well, Kaiser did that. He raced to the ring, and then he stood there. All right. Well, Jey Uso is your winner. He was probably my third or fourth pick, to be honest, to win. And, you know, like Mitch said, the merch game is real. The merch game is real. He is the top merch selling guy. The entrance is over. I still don't know if he's as over as the entrance is. And that's just me talking. So this might be one of those Rumble winners that doesn't win the big one. I don't know if that's the case or not. Maybe things change over the next few months here, but for me personally, I don't see it right now. I do want to get to Andy's comments here because we're running out of time. He thought the whole Rumble was excellent, a great win for Jade. Disappointed with Charlotte's win, but the road to Mania looks exciting. So that's another way to look at it too. But you know, overall, I think that the merch factor does play a big thing. And WWE knows that. And there's the one thing that we saw from Triple H afterwards is that WWE knows how to make money now. More money than they ever have.
You know, I will say to the Royal Rumble, one thing I'll defend a win like a Jey Uso is because if you think about it, nobody else of that group needs the Rumble to headline, to have a big match. They didn't need the Rumble to propel themselves. Someone like a Jey Uso actually needs the Rumble to propel themselves and is hot. He's hot. And especially when you're just coming off of an almost championship win and great presentation from Saturday night's main event between him and Gunther. It was good momentum for him. So that's where I feel content with the finish and the win because the other people, like I say, just didn't need it.
And the closing thoughts from Joe Aguinaldo.
Actually, I'm just going to piggyback off what Dimitri said. I think Jey needed that win because had Drew, Seth, Punk, those guys not winning, not a big deal. They're still going to factor into the main storylines. But I do think to get Jey to that level, it does help elevate him. That said, yeah, where are we going from here? And as Paul likes to say, gotta watch the show.
All right. Well, this has been our roundtable on the Royal Rumble with Dimitri Korolis, Joe Aguinaldo, and myself. Coming up, if you are listening on the podcast, you are going to get a bonus Yay Boo, some of your feedback from our social media page, the Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page. But gentlemen, I want to thank you both for your thoughts on the Rumble this year. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, dude.
Thank you.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
CKXUFM 88.3 in Lethbridge is Southern Alberta's true alternative radio station.
The cream of the crop! Nobody does it better.
Proudly carrying McGuire on Wrestling every week.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something different to listen to,
This is gonna be a slobber knocker!
check out our NCRA award-winning lineup of programs or stream us anytime at ckxu.com.
It's time for the Wrestling Observer Insider with Dave Meltzer, McGuire on Wrestling.
As he does every week, Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer here to talk all about the world of pro wrestling. Dave, we will talk about the Royal Rumble in just a moment, but worth bringing up in some news conversation here. The continued lawsuit from Janel Grant against Vince McMahon has some new names that I guess have been, what would you say, more firmly implied in the lawsuit now moving forward?
I mean, those names were already out. I mean, I don't know what the legalese and why things were done the way they were, but a lot of the people who were not mentioned by name in the original law, she basically They did a revised lawsuit that came out on Friday, which the key is that the lawyers for TKO, the lawyers for Vince McMahon, the lawyers for John Laurinaitis are trying to get the case thrown out and moved into arbitration, because in the NDA that was signed, it specifically says if there's any problems with this NDA or any problems going forward, it has to go to binding arbitration. It cannot go to a lawsuit. So they said, like, look, it's right here. It can't. And so they had to answer that. And, she basically answered back that the speaking out law prohibits, in the case of sexual abuse, the NDA has to be thrown out. You can't hide sexual abuse with an NDA.
Right.
If the judge believes that Vince and Janel Grant had an affair, it's over, they signed an NDA, then the case is going to be thrown out. If the judge believes that there was sexual abuse going on, then the case will move forward. That's essentially what she's going to have to rule on. Vince also reneged on the payment, so therefore the NDA should be thrown out. And there was another argument, basically, that, yeah, she signed it, but she was coerced into signing it, which they argued, how could she be coerced? They negotiated back and forth. So there's something that was very interesting in the suit, and that is that she brought into evidence a phone conversation from Vince McMahon to her, where Vince McMahon basically said that you have to sign this right away because there's an audit committee meeting coming up like in the next couple of days. And Jerry McDevitt had to tell them about all of the potential legal situations that affected the company. And the Janel Grant thing would be one of them, unless it was settled.
And for those that are unfamiliar with this, Jerry McDevitt was WWE and Vince McMahon's longtime legal counsel on this.
Right.
That.
So he would, with full knowledge of what happened with Vince, because he was involved in the negotiations. So when it came to that, he would have to tell the audit committee, which would inform the board of directors, that there was this thing which nobody knew because they'd kept it hidden. And eventually the fear is that, like, Vince told her I could be kicked out of my own company, but it becomes a public thing, at least within the company. The board of directors know, and they could look at it and go, like, this is no behavior for a guy running this company. And so whether they would or they wouldn't, he told her that I could be kicked out of my own company, and you've got to sign it immediately, because once he goes, he has to be able to tell them that there's no cases, because he won't lie, and it's like, and it was almost to the extent of, Vince being kind of like, yeah, why didn't he, if he should just lie for me, but he wouldn't. He made it clear. Jerry made it clear to Vince he wouldn't lie for him. So Vince had to get this thing settled. So she believes that that's the evidence that they said that she was being really forced into it and coerced into it and everything like that. So that's the key as far as the case going forward. But yeah, they mentioned Brock Lesnar's name. They mentioned Nick Khan's name. They mentioned Brian Nurse. They mentioned
Michael Hayes, I think, is also in there.
Michael Hayes was added to the suit, which was just a deal where, the Michael Hayes thing was just the idea that Janel Grant had been told, and I guess she'd been in text conversations with Michael Hayes. Vince had been sending Michael Hayes and the crew photos of Janel. That's where the Michael Hayes name comes in. The Brock thing is she's claiming that Vince tried to traffic her and that Brock was thinking of not signing, and he was using her to get Brock to sign, which, again, that's her claim. I don't know if it's true.
The phone call from before, are they implying that's recorded? Like, do they have that actually evidenced somehow?
Yeah. They have the recording of the phone call.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a couple of new things. They added some new texts, which were just kind of basically similar. The Michael Hayes text actually was from Janel, and I didn't even think it made Janel look good at all, because Janel is essentially saying, to Michael Hayes, to prove that that Vince told her and shared it. She's going to Michael Hayes going like, I hope I live up to the hype. I don't know if that makes her look particularly good at all, but I guess, the argument is that Vince forced her to do it. But that's, it's a messy case, but more stuff came out. And the next thing is the judge will rule, if the case is sent to arbitration, and which in a sense would end the case, and an arbitrator would make a ruling, or it would go to a jury trial, in which case, the damages could and probably would be far more if the jury believes her story. And, there'll be, Vince and John Laurinaitis certainly will have a completely different story than she does. So that's the situation with the case. But it's, it's more nasty stuff. I mean, Vince certainly, he already looked as bad as he was going to look. I don't know that he looks worse. It's just more evidence, more evidence making him look bad. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think
the other thing, for whatever reason, this one I don't understand. So they mentioned in the original suit, like they didn't mention those names, but we knew that it already come out, and Ann Callis had already gone on record as saying yes, those are the names. So now they're mentioned in the suit, like Lesnar and Nick Khan and Brad Blum, but they took all references of Stephanie McMahon out. So
Welcome
that was
back
very interesting.
to
I don't know what
McGuire
that
on
means,
Wrestling.
but Stephanie McMahon's name was in the original suit. It's not in the new suit.
Well, I think that was a big indicator, too, as to when we saw Stephanie on the Royal Rumble, and now they got this new TV series with her coming out. So we'll talk more about that here. Let's shift from the legal updates now and get back to talking about wrestling. Of course, the WWE Royal Rumble this past weekend. Massive show. I giggled a little bit, but this is what WWE does during the post-show press conference. They flashed a graphic that said attendance was 65,000, as Triple H is literally saying we had 70,000 in attendance. And
there were the two things then after the show that were hilarious. One was Jackie Redmond saying that Cody Rhodes was injured, and which I think is storyline. Although they didn't do an injury storyline, in the match, but she said he's banged up, he's injured, he's not going to be at the press conference. And then Paul Levesque comes out, like 5 minutes later, and just goes, "We had no injuries at the show." And it's like, if you're doing storyline, if you're doing storyline, certainly Paul Levesque should know the storyline. And if it's real, certainly Paul Levesque should know real. That's the kind of miscommunication that I would expect at other wrestling companies that you really don't see with WWE. And then the graphic thing is, for the attendance, that was hilarious.
Well, it's a really non-issue at the end of the day. They made a boatload of money. There were a ton of people.
It was giant. Yeah. It was a giant gate, giant merchandise records. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So let's get down to the actual thing here. If anybody was injured, I was going to ask you, have you heard anything on the status of Kevin Owens? Is he okay? Because dear Lord, the way that match ended, he was folded over himself. Like it was
a great looking finish. I've heard nothing that would indicate he's hurt.
Okay.
Paul Levesque said no injuries, no serious injuries. And I've heard, other than the Cody Rhodes thing, which, I asked around to try to get clarified, and they didn't get clarified. Hopefully they'll get it later. But aside from that, nobody was talked about as far as being seriously injured. So thank God. There was a bump that Kevin Owens took on the ladder, not the finish, but another one on his back that really concerned me a lot.
Yeah.
They took, both of them took a lot of nasty bumps. And it was like one of those things I was watching with a couple of people, including, one of the guys, has experienced wrestling and kind of stopped wrestling because of injuries, like those type of situations. And the most dangerous bump was one that was literally forgotten about 10 seconds later. You know what I mean? And it's like, if it's one thing, I was going if it's the finish of the match, like the other bump, it's like, that's one thing. But it's like some bump that no one even remembers 10 seconds later, and you risk a broken back on it. And it's just but that's modern wrestling too. Thank God guys don't get hurt more, but guys get hurt a lot. I mean, I think the injury rate in wrestling, and it goes through, it's not a WWE thing, although WWE's had a lot of injuries lately. WWE and AEW, it's like 12% of the roster at most points. It's pretty high. Used to be a lot lower than that.
Going back to the actual match itself, we have your order reversed on the show today. We've done our Rumble Roundtable now already, and myself and a couple of our hosts on the podcast here. One thing I liked about this ladder match, even though they were different sizes, and once the announce table was kind of used as part of it, this was the first ladder match I've seen in a long time where only ladders were used as a weapon. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no tables.
No tables, no chairs, no nothing, just ladders. Even though they had the little ladder and everything else, I thought, this harkens. I mean, I remember when they only had one ladder. You know what I mean? And that was all you had. And then all of a sudden, the second.
Yeah, but you couldn't do that now because ladders break like crazy, and you can't predict their breaking. So
yeah. Yeah, but it was just kind of a purist moment for me. Okay, I want to talk a little bit more about the show here and some happenings. Of course, we could talk to death about who won and everything else, but one thing that stood out to me, and I knew I was going to be talking to you the next day after it, quote from Wade Barrett, Don't read the dirt sheets. The report that Alexa Bliss and WWE were far apart. As soon as I saw that story come out, I was like, that's horse hockey. There's no way that's true, because sure enough, she shows up and makes her return at the Rumble here. So AJ Styles, we saw a few weeks ago tweeting out that this injury is like really, really tough to deal with. He makes his return. This report comes out about Alexa Bliss not coming out. It seems there's more and more faking out going on now about.
Oh yeah. Not just. I mean, it's faking out the people in the company, the fans, sure, yeah, but also people in the company in the sense of. I mean, look, everyone I don't say everyone in the company, but most people in the company were, certainly under the impression of the same thing, like. Essentially, the contract was coming due. It was not expired, but they didn't want to. It makes no sense to debut you when your contract is about to run out. So They wanted to sign a new deal. They signed the new deal, and that's what ended up happening. And I think that the idea was they kept the signing away from everyone, including telling people in the company, and everyone in the company. I don't say everyone, but most, that, we're at a contract impasse and she's not going to be there. But that is, they're doing a lot of stuff right now to fake out the people who work in the company. And some of them are just like, well, it's wrestling, we expected. And some of them, I mean, there were people pissed off last night, just going like, why are they lying to us?
But it's a creative industry now. And if a storyline gets out, I mean, look, okay, I'm going to take you back to like, I don't know if you've watched it, but like The Walking Dead, okay, and the big scene where a major character gets off. What they did is they literally shot the same scene with every character.
Oh, right. Yeah. Like Who Shot JR, and they shot endings with 5 different characters.
Yeah. So I mean,
culprit.
So
you
different
didn't
than
know.
that. It's
So you didn't know. Yeah. That's whatever. I mean, it's like, we've got to expect that they're going to be lying to their employees, and and stories are going to get out. But I mean, like what I was essentially told is that the Alexa thing started as a real story. And then it changed. And then the question is, did it change in the last 48 hours? Or did it change days before that? I think it was days before that. There's a couple of reasons why that I really don't want to get into. But one thing kind of made me think that, but whatever. I was told by someone very, very clear, I think it was on Thursday. It's just like, they're not close. They probably were close by then. They probably actually had the deal done by then. But the person who told me didn't know that.
Something else that has come out and has your name attached to it a little bit here is a report that Drew McIntyre has stormed out of the Royal Rumble, and something along the line of somebody had to get their moves in or something. He wasn't happy with something.
That was a Mike Johnson story.
Okay.
And it is accurate. Okay. It is accurate as far as that did happen. I don't know if he's still mad. I mean, I watched the tape back. It was something. Guys bumped into each other. It wasn't a big deal. I think that, Drew is one of those guys, and he wasn't the only one. There were several people that were mad, but the thing is it's like they wanted to go perfect. Somebody was in the way of a spot. It didn't look that bad. I mean, it's like Brian Alvarez totally noticed it. He went through details of it. I watched it later, and it's like, to me, it was like, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, it happened. Things don't go well. Braun Strowman got mad when, he didn't catch, was Dominic, right?
No, it was Finn. Yeah.
So, guys get mad because they have a vision. They want it to go perfect. Didn't go perfect. But
I don't felt for poor Finn because he went right down too.
Yeah.
Let's go to the post show here. Jey Uso is your Royal Rumble winner. I think that was probably 4th or 5th, maybe, on a lot of people's picks for who could be the winner of the men's match.
Maybe even lower, but yeah.
I had him about 4th because I thought about the merch thing because, I mean, he's just selling a ton of stuff.
He's selling a lot of merch, but so's Punk, I mean, he's not, I mean, there's a lot of people who sell. Roman always sells merch.
But Punk's got a story. Roman seems to have a story with Seth, it looks like.
It looked to me like Roman, Punk, and Seth were all kind of grouped together there at the end.
Yeah.
And then you got Drew McIntyre, who would be odd man out if he's not with them because he's talked about Punk and Roman consistently. So, I mean, they've got a lot of options of where to go. I mean, I watched it and I go, I think they're going to do a 3-way, and they may, but I don't know that as fact, coming out of this. But there's things, they could put them all, and I expect them all to be in the most loaded men's elimination chamber ever. And, and then whatever happens in that chamber, we'll set up the WrestleMania card. How it involves Punk, Roman, everybody, but essentially Jey Uso and John Cena.
But no surprise here. Your pick to not win it was John Cena because of the fact that he's all over the Elimination Chamber. You've talked about that on the show.
I said he's all over the ads for the Elimination Chamber. Yeah. When John Cena was the favorite. And then I said, like, it's like, I don't know. No one's told me, but I think John Cena's winning an Elimination Chamber because he's all over the advertising. If he wins at Rumble, why would he be at Elimination Chamber? So to me, that was just logic. And then all of a sudden, it's like, then Punk became the big favorite. And I was like, God, they changed all the odds by doing the show. But John didn't win, and he was in there at the end. And when he was in there with Jey Uso at the end, I actually did think Jey was going to win for the same reason. But at that moment, I was kind of like, wow, I wasn't expecting Jey. I was expecting Punk. I thought that was the right choice, but there's no right or wrong choice. The business is where the business is, and they can do anything right now. It's not dependent on, if we pick the wrong guy, business is going to go down. Mania is going to be what Mania is. It's a different era. Like some people are going like, for business, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, there is no for business. Whatever they do is going to be good for business. They can do whatever they want. And, Jay's a good story. People didn't expect it. People did expect Charlotte Flair, so we'll throw a surprise in one, and the other one will go to the one that we think is logical, and that's fine.
On that note, you brought up a perfect phrase to lead us to my final question for you about the Rumble here. Going back to the post-show Rumble conference, we played the quote earlier on in the show here. John Cena, a lot of people were saying, this is different, makes a statement, takes no questions, says he believes that him main eventing WrestleMania and becoming a 17-time champion is what's best for business. Some people even go as far as say, could this be the long-awaited John Cena heel turn? What is happening here? Because it was very much not John Cena at the end of this thing here. Is this becoming...
Who knows? I mean, anything's possible. I'd be surprised at a heel turn, especially since this is farewell and there's only a limited stuff and they want him to go out as the all-time greatest.
Right.
I could see him, it's like if in another period, even going back 2 years, I would say John Cena winning the title to break a record is kind of bad because he's not full-time and Cody's done a great job. And, for Cody to lose, he should lose to a Braun Break or a guy, a future guy, right? Not a past guy. Make a guy. But like in this day and age, none of that matters. So they can do whatever they want. And if the long-term marketing is John Cena is the greatest of all time and he's got the record, he's got to win the record, you know? And so you do it that way. I didn't expect him to win the title. I obviously expected him to be in the match with Cody, but they could do that. They could have Cody win. I mean, like to me, Cody win passing the torch is it's better for business, but it doesn't matter if they want John Cena to set the record. Cody can come back later. It's not like it's going to kill Cody Rhodes to put one guy over, I mean, he's still a superstar and will be. So they can do whatever they want. There's no right or wrong when you're selling out shows at Mania. What's the average price going to be? $400? I mean, it's ridiculous.
I don't know, probably too rich for my blood, so I'll be watching it on Netflix. But Dave Meltzer joining us from the Wrestling Observer. We've been talking a lot about the Royal Rumble, obviously, the biggest story in wrestling this weekend here. We will catch up on AEW, TNA, and whatnot coming up next week. But Dave, before we go, I want to give you the chance to talk about things that are going on the Wrestling Observer website and in your newsletter. What are some things you're talking about?
Yeah, this is a really good issue. I went in depth on AEW and heel beatdown angles. I actually went kind of like there's things that I think that they should look at from a standpoint of kind of like charting it out. Not to get away from it, but don't do it after every match like they did on Wednesday's show. It felt like every match there was a heel beatdown, and it's redundant and it means nothing. If you do something 6 times in a show, none of them are going to get over. If you do it once, it might get over. And I was just talking about get back to, I think that they've forgotten what the whole idea of angles are, especially for them because they're not selling out every show and they are trying to build business. And the idea of angles is not to just throw something on TV with angles, but to make it mean something. And so I was just kind of going here's some steps that you can take. I had a big story on Ed Wiskowski, Colonel De Beers, who passed away. Long story on him. Story on Billy Melby, who was a big star in the 50s and early 60s, and who actually passed away a time ago, but none of us knew it until, one of my readers actually was on a Mormon genealogy website for reasons that he hasn't even told me, and just saw that the guy died and told Greg Oliver, and Greg Oliver confirmed, talked about the Bryce Mitchell situation in UFC, which is ridiculous. It's horrible. But he's apologized since then. Also, all the news of the week and everything. But
of course.
The bios, I worked really hard on those bios. Wiskowski's very interesting. Melby's very interesting. And the AEW stuff, I've been writing about them every week, like just things that, it's funny. I'm writing about like things they could do to do better. And well, the rating on Wednesday was down, which I expected because I thought Mercedes and Yuka Sakazaki was too weak of a main event. The reality is their numbers are up, and they're setting records in England now. So it's kind of like, oh my God, I'm telling them things to improve, and Tony's comes back with, we're setting records in England, which they are, and there's probably reasons for that.
He is Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer. We'll be talking again with him soon. Until next week, Dave, all the best. And I guess we'll see what next week brings us. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
Coming up next on this special extended podcast version of McGuire on Wrestling, we go to your thoughts on WWE's Royal Rumble with a loaded Yay Boo segment.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
The alternate commentary table, ACT, brought to you by the Celebrate Wrestling podcast feed. Listen, it's Mitch, it's Dimitri. We got this little pod thing that we do every single week where we talk about the week in wrestling and the way in which we do it from the other side of the railing. Right, Mitch?
I like that.
We're coming at it because we love it. We hate it. The alternate commentary table, ACT. Download it anywhere where you're getting your podcasts.
Cha-cha!
Yay, boo, it's lots of fun to do. If you like it, holla yay. If you don't, you holla boo.
Welcome back to McGuire on Wrestling.
All right, final segment of the show. Want to thank you for subscribing to the McGuire on Wrestling and Celebrate Wrestling podcast feed. If you haven't done that yet, press the button. Get this automatically downloaded. It's even better for you. And also, if you've been looking for us, when we updated the name to Celebrate Wrestling, some subscriptions actually got canceled because when you change the name, it changes the URL and da-da-da-da-da. So if you're still downloading it manually and you want to subscribe, you might have to just resubscribe to get this show. But let's get on with the business here. We had Joe Aguinaldo on earlier. We had Dimitri Korolis on earlier. Mitch has got a baby to take care of. Andy is like 7 hours ahead of me, so I think it's like 1 o'clock in the morning there now. We're a little late in production, so let's get down to your yay boos from the WWE Royal Rumble. And I know it's going to be an extended version of the show because there's a lot of yay boos for the Royal Rumble. So I'm going to try and get through as many as possible here, if not all of them, because why not? It's just you and me hanging out here now. So let's start off and go in order. Some of you have written nice mini essays on this. I'm not going to go through the entire thing on it because it's worth reading. Don't get me wrong. Check it out at the Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page. But in the interest of getting everybody in and not having this go another half an hour, Blaine says overall a yay. Only issues he had were very minor, like in the women's match, for instance. He thought the first two entrants could have at least shown some kind of disappointment about their numbers, but Liv comes out smiling and posing the way she normally does. I kind of prefer they don't do major surprises in every Rumble, so it doesn't become an expectation, and when it does happen, it's a legit surprise. And then he says, speaking of surprises, Jey Uso winning the men's match might have been the biggest one of the night. I don't think anybody saw it coming, but I think they need to go all the way with him in order for anyone to take the future Rumble winners seriously. That's an interesting point. That's a very interesting point. Very interesting point, because there have been winners that don't go on to win the championship. Shinsuke Nakamura. Dare I bring up Booker T? And others have not gotten the job done at Mania. Blaine is also going on to say that the match needs to be the final match at WrestleMania and that it needs to be against Cody, nothing against Gunther, but it would solidify him as a top guy. Wow. Putting a lot behind Jey Uso. All right, Stephen Bennett from over in the UK says for him it's a mixture. Yay, WWE pulled the trigger on Jey Uso, a little unexpected considering the big names that were all favorites to win, and to have him eliminate Cena was huge. Yeah, not the biggest elimination either. You can still tell that they're keeping Cena healthy for movies because he just kind of got nudged off and landed on his feet. Stefan goes on to say the Cody-Kevin match was brutal and enjoyable. The Women's Rumble was for the most part enjoyable. Joe Hendry, just some big letters. Oh, and then he gives a boo for the tag title match. Says it was good, but felt out of place on this card, and no real entrance in the Rumble surprised him for the men except for Joe Hendry. Charlotte booked to win the Women's Rumble, and her first appearance back is so frustrating. Again, I kind of see it now differently after the press conference, but he says, I like Charlotte, but the women's division is stacked, and they could and should have gone with someone more deserving. Stephen, all due respect, man, we got to get this deserving thing out of our heads, okay? There's a lot of people with a lot of career ahead of them. And as much as I don't want to say it, who knows how much Charlotte has left in her? Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, she's back. She looks great. But how much is really left there? So why not maximize what you got with her now? I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Douglas Stanford Grandy. While the Women's Rumble had the predictable ending, I felt the men's did not, which is a good thing. I did not predict Jey Uso winning at all. Even the match I had the least interest in, the 2 out of 3 tag falls match, had an ending that makes me intrigued to see what comes next. Yeah, the Street Profits really did deliver there, so he says it's a yay for him. Stephen or Stephen Perry, I apologize. Let me know which one it is in the comments. He says, yay, a ladder match had a few crazy spots and Kevin sold that ending. Oh, yeah. And yeet Jey winning, don't think anyone would have called that. Yeah, I don't think anybody, honestly, and I'm not kidding. I had Jey in like my top 4, but I didn't think he'd win the whole thing. The merchandise is there. I hope that if he does go to Mania and main events and gets that title match, because don't forget, this can still change. This can still, remember, somebody owes somebody a favor too. I don't know how this all works out, but the bottom line is that Jey Uso is the guy they're hitching the wagon to for this quarter. So we'll see what goes on. Our buddy Joe Aguinaldo says there were some good moments, but overall going to boo on this one. We've heard from Joe already in his thoughts there. Andy Lewis says yay for him, and that's it. Appreciate it. Man, a few words. John Persky says, I only caught the men's rumble. Yay for me, I enjoyed it. Dave Drashev says, yay, I really enjoyed Jey winning the men's rumble match. Kudos to everyone at the end, except for Logan Paul, and he puts in a thumbs down, for making it not about themselves and reaching down and pulling another guy up to the main event. Yeet. P.S. I hope he goes after Cody. Another person saying that Jey Uso should go for Cody and not Gunther. I don't know. It seems as though he's going for Gunther, because he did say he was going for the World Heavyweight Championship. All right, and that's a lot different words than undisputed WWE Championship. They've solidified those are the names of the belts. And I'm pretty sure Jey would know the difference of which belt he was going for. Randy Osgood says, yay, great show overall. I was shocked that Jey won, another person. I didn't see that coming. I'm thinking he takes on Gunther, and I wonder, does Cena win the chamber match or someone else takes on Cody at WrestleMania? Yeah, what about Roman? Okay, I'm throwing that out there. What about Fatu? Right? He kind of got pushed a little bit to the moon ski, although I could see him in the Intercontinental run as well. Maybe giving Braun Breaker a hard time. Or maybe they just do this whole Braun Strowman thing, and they wait. Because again, guys, we get tons of time for Jacob Fatu to get to the world title picture. It's exciting to have new guys and girls get into that scene all the time. I get it. But this is literally the never-ending story. So we got lots of time to plug him in there. All right, Devin Axman. I always love his stuff. Devin says, time for some unpopular opinions. Show is overall a boo for him. He says the women's match was boring. Charlotte was moving around like Andre. Really? I don't know about that. Anyway, he says the tag match was a boring disappointment for those teams involved. Maybe I'm burned out on ladder matches, but everyone other than the finish was boring as hell. Playing with the small ladder destroyed the suspension of disbelief for me. See, I disagree. I disagree because it's a usable weapon. All right, and you can't swing a chair the same way you swing a ladder, but you can swing a small ladder the way you swing a chair. Does that make sense? Anyway, he says the finish ruled, though. Owens looked like he died while taking a safe bump. Yeah, I still just oof. The men's match was okay with some good action, but I can't get behind the Yeet Man winning. The ultimate, quote, and then the bell rings guy. Oh, yeah. Yeah, great entrance, and then the bell rings. That's that old phrase there. He says, I do think the finish is more to build up Cena overcoming the odds, though. Yeah, we played you that clip from the post-show press conference. Cena is fascinating now. I'm really, really all in on this year of Cena, and I'm going to throw it out there. I don't think he wins the Elimination Chamber. I don't think he does. I think we're SummerSlam at best, maybe Survivor Series. He's got the whole year to get that belt. Again, why rush it when you don't have to? Chris Holt gives the Royal Rumble a big yay. Women's Rumble was excellent, even if a little predictable at the end. Jax was made to look too strong as well. Can you beat too strong? All right. Ladder match, certainly violent and has some intrigue following. As for the men's Rumble, a true surprise and a good surprise. Sets off many nice angles on the road to Mania. Martin Rue just gives 100% yay. Robbie Kemp also says yay. The women's Rumble was fun, though predictable. Tag match was fast-paced. WWE Championship match is Owens alive. Apparently so. And male Rumble was fantastic in Robbie's eyes. So many mixed story angles. Jay was a complete shock, but I ain't mad. All right. Sean Burkhead says, overall a yay. I honestly said to myself, as Jey Uso came down, he has no chance of winning. Show you what we know as wrestling fans. Boo to Logan Paul. Toss my contest pick out. Yeah, by the way, thanks to everybody that entered the Rumble pool. To have 77 people give a crap to play our little Royal Rumble pool with no prize announced, by the way, because TBD, okay, to be honest. I just ordered some merch. I've got some other stuff coming, but congratulations to our winners. You will hear from me. You'll get your stuff TBD. But it's really more just about adding some intrigue to the show, I feel. Anyway, back to Sean's comments here. He says, boo for not letting Grace clear the ring. Jordan Grace making her debut is what he's talking about. Yay, Cody beating KO in a wicked ladder match. And yay, Charlotte winning if she faces Tiffany at Mania. That's an interesting one, too. We've seen Charlotte and Rhea a few times now. We've seen it a few times for different titles. Okay, for the Women's Championship, for the NXT title. Maybe we go down that road one more time. Or maybe she makes it Tiffy time. We'll see. Chris Hodenot. Chris has got a bit of an essay here, so I'm going to have to go through this as best I can. Chris says, overall a yay. Women's Rumble, Io Sky is the MVP. Oh, absolutely. In from the beginning, worked with everyone who came after to establish them into the match. Charlotte winning, not a fan, seems to earn her shot after returning from injury, or needs to earn her shot after returning from injury. Well, I would say that winning the Royal Rumble earns it, doesn't it? Should have worked it to Elimination Chamber. Sure. Tag match. Crowd not into most of it, but after the Women's Rumble match, great storytelling and ring psychology, leading to continued storyline development, including the Street Profits. Again, the Street Profits are the story of that match. Dimitri was absolutely right, and everybody that's saying that is absolutely right. The 2 out of 3 falls, I don't know if it was needed in a show with 2 giant Rumble matches either, personally. That's Mike talking, not Chris here. Let's go back to Chris's comments, though. Cody, KO shirt were awesome. Ladder match was good, not too many crazy spots. Using the little ladder was a great highlight. See? I'm saying you can swing that little ladder more. Sorry, I'm hitting my microphone now. Thought this one should or could have ended in a no contest. Men's Rumble, starting with Penta and Rey, was great. Should have had a little more time for them to tease a future set of matches down the road. Again, we got time. The continuation of the Lucha issues with Gable was great. I-Speed, Braun Breaker broke him in half with that speed. I'm not hearing a lot more about I-Speed, and I'm okay with that. To be honest, and this is Mike talking again, to be completely honest, the iSpeed thing, to me, was a disappointment. And I'll explain why after I read the rest of Chris's thing here. Okay, he says, Braun Breaker breaking in half with a spear was great. Jacob Fatu continues to look strong. Braun Breaker eliminated before Braun Strowman entered. So there was not confusion. That is smart. The good catch there. Glad to see CM Punk not win, but don't forget Heyman owes him a favor. Ending with Jey Uso and John Cena, after listening to the interview with McGuire and Hitman, I was thinking they may do a similar finish as Brett and Luger. I was thinking the same thing. Anyway, Chris says, glad, though, to see Jey win. Yeet. WWE just needs to fulfill his destiny, although I think he's going to get screwed somehow. Yeah, it's possible. Okay, back to the iSpeed thing really quick here. Going back to that 94 Rumble. And go back and watch it. It's a great Rumble match. 1994 is a solid Rumble match. But there was the big question of Bret Hart being in that Rumble. And then they had the dead spot where nobody came out. So really, only 28 guys in the 1994 Royal Rumble, by the way. Something to think about. But in that match, Virgil came out at one point. And Virgil was said to be an alternate for someone else in the Rumble. So you're telling me that in all these years of Royal Rumbles, without any alternates standing by, the best we can do is throw a YouTuber in the Royal Rumble for a shot at the championship at Mania? You want to talk about suspending your disbelief? Forget about the ladders. You got one of the biggest rosters in anything. And the best you have for an alternate is iSpeed? Okay. Our friend Bob Hunt, yay for the sports ticker. Love seeing who is still in the match. And the nationality was a nice little nod to the worldwide audience. Yeah, I like the flags on the intro. That's a UFC thing they've brought over for sure. Mary says, boo for the tag team yawner, boo the ladder match. How many freaking ladders can you stuff under a ring? The answer is many, in case you're wondering. All depends on the height. Anyway, boo men's Rumble match ending. Cena was ridiculous. Yay for women's Rumble, fast-paced, and good interactions. Cody Brown says, yay. Never thought Jey Uso had a chance of winning considering the other star power. Loved the surprise. Sweet Vinny B says, yay. Great show, top to bottom. Love the addition of the Rumble ticker, and the camera work was on point all night, even during Lyra's wardrobe malfunction. The Jey surprise was completely off my map. Excited to see where they go with it. There was one thing the cameras missed. One thing. And that was Joe Hendry's pivot turn. Do you notice that? They stayed on the wide shot. They didn't zoom in on him. They tried to quickly jump over to the other camera afterwards. But I think they were on the wrong wide camera. And this is a very nerdy thing to notice. But I used to work as a TV switcher 100 years ago. And so I've directed. And I think they had two wide shots. And I think that they thought they were on camera 1 and they were on camera 2. And they quickly jumped over to camera 2. But it was too late. We missed the big dramatic zoom in. So, you know what? That is your nitpickiest of nitpickies right there. Okay. Couple more here, and then we're going to pull a pin in her. Scott Ainsworth down in Australia listening. Thank you, Scott. And again, happy belated birthday. Yay for him. He says the women's Rumble had a good flow, although a couple more eliminations earlier would have helped. The opposite for the men's. I thought they didn't have enough people in the ring during the middle. Not fussed with Charlotte winning. I guess that means you're not enthused. She'll probably have to pick Tiffany. The tag team match felt like a filler. Yeah. The ladder match was one of the better ones I've seen in a while. The men's Rumble, the first half of it was meh. I thought they had too many eliminations early. I thought they had too many eliminations early. I Show Speed, that whole part was boo. Agree, 100%. Instead of that, use Trick Williams. Yes, you got an NXT roster you could have pulled from. 100%, Scott. The second half of the Rumble was excellent as it set up the, quote, road to WrestleMania. Jason Christmas, my favorite name, on the Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page. Jason Christmas says, boo, Jey Uso is just an... Oh, wow. Check this out. Jason Christmas. Jey Uso is just an entrance. He can't do a promo. Gunther was right. He's just a really talented tag team wrestler. Ouch. Maybe not wrong. Maybe not wrong, though. I'm not going to... Again, they can all wrestle and have made more money doing it better than I can. So I'm not going to say that, but I do question, is Jey Uso the wrestler, or is Jey Uso the entrance, the thing that's selling the t-shirts and the sunglasses and the yeet? You know? I see kids wearing yeet stuff all around town here from when WWE was here last, and so I give them a little yeet, and they're happy to yeet. And I say, are you a big Jey Uso fan? Like, yeah. So, again, that's a very, very nominal opinion there. All right, Easy says, after a lot of thought, because I feel Punk totally deserved it, but Hunter not being predictable and literally not even being able to guess what he's going to do next is very exciting. Okay. And then Sal, good old Sal, who is one of the winners of our Rumble pool. I think he was in Wave 1 or Wave 2. Either way, Sal says, yay for Charlotte Flair winning the Women's Royal Rumble. Look at that. We went for 20 minutes just on Yay Boo with just you and me. So thank you, everybody, for being a part of the page, for spreading the word, and for taking the time to listen to all this. Because, again, this is a project of love. I don't want to make it sound like I'm complaining, but these Sundays are a solid day for me every day to produce this show. Like, I come in early, I get my stuff together, we get Dave on, we get Joe on, all this other stuff, and I try and put it in a nice package for you here. And originally the goal was to just give you the 1 hour radio show, but when we get special events like this, I like to take the extra time and give you a little more here with your Yay Boos, because your opinions are what matter the most. That's why, again, the show is called McGuire on Wrestling. It was decided in a minute. We've since transitioned the whole thing to Celebrate Wrestling. But the show is, calling it Mike and Friends would be kind of lame. You know what I mean? But I really do appreciate all of you offering your feedback and encourage you to keep doing it. Tell your friends about it. Get them signed up to the Facebook page. Send them over to McGuireShow.com. Send a PayPal. I don't care. It is appreciated, though. So if you want more details on how you can support the show, Celebrate Wrestling is where you find everything, and the CelebrateWrestling.com will be coming soon. We'll be transitioning everything over to that website, but right now it's still McGuireShow.com. That shuts her down for this week. I'm going to go find something to drink, get ready for my radio morning show tomorrow, and of course, get ready to ride that road to WrestleMania. Until next time, my friends, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing and letting us do what we do. Play safe, drive safe. Senior.
McGuire on Wrestling. Online and on the radio. Listen to the show Mondays at 4 p.m. Mountain Time at CKXU.com, wherever you get your podcasts, and at McGuireShow.com.